something called dopamine and serotonin, which are the happy chemicals. So from the time I was 10 to 22, I'm sitting in classes, I can't concentrate. You know, I'm in these special ed classes and I'm feeling like I'm stupid, and my dad's calling me stupid, and then there was physical abuse in my home and just all this adversity. So when it came around to making a decision, whether it was college or whether it was the Marine Corps or whatever, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Because I didn't know anything about self-love. I didn't know anything about me. And I sure as heck didn't know anything about what was going on upstairs or around me from a spiritual standpoint. I had no spiritual compass. I always thought that I was the one in control. I was the one that was either going to create or make a situation happen or not happen. And I thought, I believed in the law of free will, and that I'm going to make it happen, and I'm going to control it, and I'm going to bear down, and that's going to get me the end result. And some of you might be like that. And if you are, what I want to impart on you today is a little bit of knowledge about what you can do to start to change your life. Okay, the first great decision that you made was signing on that dotted line and being here. Because I can tell you at 37, I still look back to my days in uniform, and I thank God every day that I had the opportunity to serve my country and to be a United States Marine. I mean, it was a huge part of making me the man I am today. Because I mean, when I got out of high school, I was the guy that like barely passed. ACTs, I had probably the lowest ACT score known to man. I mean, like the one that you barely could get even one college class, right? Part-time. When I was at Quantico my first 2 years, I got my associates, right? And it was a miracle I was even able to go to college. But the Marine Corps, just even boot camp, gave me that like will to know that I could succeed, to know that I could be successful, right? And that started these events really opening my mind and allowing me to ask questions like, why am I here? What am I supposed to do with my life? What's my destiny? And that was never even a possibility for me prior to making that decision to step on those yellow footprints. That wasn't even a part of my life. I didn't even think that was possible. And here I am. I spent 2 years at Quantico, Virginia, and then I went to Camp Schwab, Okinawa. I was with 4th Marines. I was with 3rd Recon. I wasn't an operator. I was support. Got to do a lot of cool stuff there. And throughout this, I'm still on this medication. So for 10 years, I'm taking a medication that alters your brain, and it's supposed to help you with depression and anxiety. But all it was doing was treating the effect and not the cause. It's kind of like a Band-Aid. Right? And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's times for medications, absolutely, right? But sometimes as a society, we kind of think that that's the quick fix for everything, don't we? It's like a Band-Aid, putting a Band-Aid on a wound that won't clot. You don't figure out why it won't clot. What happens to that underlying condition? It's going to get better or worse. It's going to get worse, right? So, but we do that with our spiritual health too, don't we? We medicate our physical body, but we medicate our spiritual body. And how do we do that? We do it with alcohol, we do it with drugs. We do it by being in denial, right? We do it by being angry. Some of us sitting in this audience right now, we think we can run it out, train it out, work it out, right? Swim it out. Is it coming back on now? There we go, right? That's what we think. And what I'm here to tell you is there's only one way to get right from an emotional standpoint. And the reason why I figured that out, that it wasn't through medications, is because shortly when I was 23, I'd been out of the Marine Corps probably about a year, and I'm driving down the road in Nashville, Tennessee, and all of a sudden this drug they had switched me off of, see, I've been on Prozac, Lexapro, Wellbutrin, every single medication that's an anti-anxiety depression med that you could possibly be on, and they switched me on a different one, and they did it too fast, right? Because when they put you on a medication, what happens? What's that? Yeah, well, I mean, it takes your body time to adjust to that medication, absolutely. But if that medication quits working, they're going to up the dose, right? And when that amount quits working, then they're going to switch you to another one. So here I'm 23. They get me off and get me on another one without kind of giving my body time to adapt. And so I start having all these effects, right? We call them side effects for a reason, right? Because they're counterproductive to what the medication's actually supposed to do. And what was the side effect of this particular medication? Well, it was depression, anxiety, and suicide. So I take this medication, I pull over, I have to call an ambulance, right? Because I started getting like this pain. It started radiating down my arm. I'm like, man, I'm 23, right? Used to rappel from towers, do all this cool stuff, right? And now I'm about to die here on the road, on the side of the street in Nashville. And it just didn't really seem like that made sense. I'm like, is this a plan my Creator has for me? And I mean, at that time, I didn't really believe in God, right? I'd gone away from God because I was Southern Baptist. And if you're Southern Baptist, if you clip your fingernails wrong, you're going to hell. That's kind of the thing, right? If you do anything wrong, you're going to hell. Oh, you're going to hell. Oh, if you do this, you're going to hell, right? I'm like, that doesn't make sense. That's not my God. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But that's what I thought in my head. So I called 911. They rushed me to the hospital. The medical doctor's sitting over me, and I said, hey, doc, what's going on with this? He goes, oh, don't worry about it. It's just anxiety. And I thought, well, I thought I was on medications to help me with the anxiety. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And he's like, yeah, I know, but that's what's happening. You have anxiety, you have depression. So then a little light bulb went off there. And I started to say, you know what? What I'm doing isn't working. If I continue to do the same thing, I'm going to end up with the same results. You know, Tony Robbins says the two most important times in your life. Anybody know who Tony Robbins is? Really successful guy, speaks all over the world, right? Owns his own island, all sorts of stuff, right? Heard tons of people that met him say he's just an awesome human being. Great guy. And supposedly he knows Jesus too. That's what somebody told me. So, Tony Robbins says the two most important times in your life are the day that you're born, the day that you know why. When I was laying on that hospital bed and this doc told me that, I started to really contemplate my future. Not only my physical, emotional future, which is most of what we're going to talk about today, but my spiritual future. Where am I going to be and where am I going to go if I were to die today? And that's something we all have to think about at some point, isn't it? So the big focus and the big drive home message today, the throw punch, is this. Start to ask why in your life. Start to ask that question. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I hanging out with the people that I'm hanging out with? Why am I following what I'm following? Because every single day, you can think of your health as a bucket. And when we get too many chemical, physical, emotional stresses, if we don't empty that bucket, what happens to the bucket? Yeah, it's going to overflow, right? So when we talk cancer, can you scoot that up for me? This Lance Corporal is amazing. Got a sign. He's got to hold the sign, right? Sorry, bro. I really appreciate it. Awesome guy. I owe him like 50 steak dinners for doing this. So you can see here, if the bucket overflows, right? I mean, a lot of us, we think that cancer is a big mystery, don't we? We think that it's all something physical or it's hereditary and genetics and all that stuff. I mean, genetics plays a role, don't get me wrong, right? Plays a role, but it's a very, very small role. Harvard did a study and found that only 2% of any conditions are actually genetic in nature. There's something called epigenetics. Anybody heard of that? So on your DNA strands, everybody know the little popsicle stick like double helixes you made in grade school, right? Some of you did, or we drew one. We didn't know what we were drawing, and we drew it on a book, and we're like, oh, this looks cool. It's like two upside down like roller coasters, right? Well, you have genetical markers. So if somebody had prostate cancer, lung cancer, colon cancer, whatever it might be in your family, you're going to have a marker for that. But that marker is kind of like an on and off switch. It's going to remain off so long as you make different and better decisions about your health. But it can't just be physical, right? Because, you know, I thought when I moved here, I was never stationed in Pendleton when I was in the Marine Corps. When I out-processed from Camp Schwab, right, I spent like 5 days here. I'm like, man, wish I had gone to boot camp here, right? All I had to do was swamps and sand fleas and stuff, right? Got all this sun, but then you guys got that huge mountain you got to hump up, right? Because got that huge mountain. What do they call that? Okay, yeah, whatever. The Reaper, right? Like miserable mountain, right? That's what I would call it. So, you know, we think that in California, everybody's going to be doing downward dogs and shooting wheatgrass and all that stuff. So my wife and I, when we moved here, because I got a calling probably around 2010, and that calling came from the Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit said, Dr. Williams, and he doesn't call me Dr. Williams, he actually called me Cordie. I did that again today. He said, you got to get your act together. You got to go help Marines. You're supposed to help Marines. You're supposed to help Navy personnel. Because what had happened when I was in college working on my doctorate is I had a friend that found out that I was a Marine. And this was, actually it wasn't college, it was when I was working on my bachelor's, right? It wasn't my doctorate, it was my bachelor's. This was probably 03, 04, somewhere in there. And he found out I was a Marine, and so of course he joined the reserves, right? He's like, I'm gonna go to Parris Island, I wanna be a Marine, all this stuff. Literally like within 3 weeks of him signing up, getting done with boot camp, he's off to Fallujah. And he comes back, and he did about 9 months over there, I guess. Maybe it was a year. He was gone for a long time, it seemed like. And he came back, and I was in a fraternity at the time, and he was just a different person. He was a different person, physically, emotionally, right? Different guy. And he had a CD of stuff, and it probably would have gotten him, well, I know it would have gotten him court-martialed, okay? And it was stuff that we did to people over there, and stuff they did to us, our guys, Marines. And he's showing me this CD, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, wow, this is intense. This is really intense. One of my best friends, his name's Matt Hill. I said, Matt, you got to get some help, bro. You got to get some help. And there was a series of movies after that really started speaking to me. That there was a problem within our military, a problem with guys getting the help they need from a spiritual, emotional standpoint. A lot of people are trying, everybody's doing the best they can, right? But there's those people out there, it's every 30 seconds that a veteran, and not necessarily just combat veterans, that they're committing suicide. It could be somebody to your left, it could be somebody to your right. Somebody right now is sitting in this audience and they're having a rough go and nobody's able to reach them. And I know that's why you're here today. You're here so we can impart a little bit of knowledge on you, so you know that you do have a why, you do have a purpose. Even if you don't believe that there's a God, okay? There's a higher power that made you perfect and designed you perfect. And so when I got that calling, I watched Lone Survivor, I saw this CD from my friend. God was like, he worked on me for about 4 years, and he said, you know what? You need to get to San Diego, California. You're supposed to help Marines. And we moved down here from New York. We had a successful practice up there. Saw about 1,400 people a week, 7 different doctors there. Living a great life. It was a little cold, right? It's a little cold. It's a lot nicer in Shangri-La here, right, by the beach. Nothing to complain about. We got a nice breeze. Everybody's got a great tan. But I thought when I moved here, everybody was going to be doing the downward dog, the wheatgrass, and just having a great time. And then you start seeing people coming in, and they're on all these brain-altering medications. And the brain-altering medications aren't really getting to the cause at all. Because they're going to maybe sit in front of people and talking to them about depression, anxiety, and maybe they're saying, well, how'd you feel about your dad punching you in the face? Or how'd you feel about your dad kicking you down the stairs? Or how'd you feel about your wife leaving you? Or that this happened to you or that happened to you? But nobody's really doing anything about their subconscious stress. And I speak all over the place. I speak in front of churches, I speak in front of groups small and large, and one of the biggest things that I find is a lot of times people will have a component of spiritual health, but they won't have all of spiritual health. And what I mean by that is you'll see people that meditate, right? Well, meditation's great. I'm a big believer in it. I do it myself. Or they pray. Big believer in that, of course, as a Christian. But what about our subconscious stress? What are we doing to get that out? I don't even know what that means, Doc. I didn't know what it meant either until I spent like 300 grand. And then I understood it really clearly. Subconscious stress is the stuff you don't know what you don't know, right? It's in a filing cabinet back there somewhere. It's in a filing cabinet. So every day you're out at the grocery store maybe, or you're off somewhere and you're getting triggered, right? And we all get triggered, don't we? We all have stuff that happens on a daily basis where it ruffles our feathers a little bit. Maybe we're standing in line at a grocery store and, we're checking out. And if you're a guy, I'm not saying anybody's checking you out, but the clerk, she's usually like 5 years old, right? Hopefully you're at Trader Joe's or Jimbo's or Fraser Farm, somewhere like that. And they're checking out your groceries, right? And maybe it takes a little bit longer. You're looking at your watch and you think you're the only person on the planet, because we do that sometimes, don't we? And so maybe you have some choice words for her. And maybe you get everything that you're thinking inside, maybe instead of rethinking that and wondering whether that was out of love or out of fear or out of anger, maybe you spew that onto her. And then maybe you leave that parking lot and you almost hurt somebody or hurt yourself because you almost run into somebody. And my question to you is, that event where you react or get triggered, is that a product of what happened in that individual moment that got you irritated? Or is that a product of something that happened 5 or 10 years prior to that? What do we think? 5 or 10 years prior, right? Anybody ever felt a trigger, right? Yeah, and if you're not raising your hand, like 3 people raise their hand. You're lying to yourself. Come on, guys. You know you felt the trigger, right? If you're me, right, I walk into my house and, like, Marines are a little neurotic, aren't we? About certain things. Like our bed being a certain way. I mean, I am. I'm like the poster boy, like neurotic Marine. My staff knows this at my office. If I was talking to you one-on-one in my office and the picture's like tilted down, I'm like, oh man, I gotta stop talking to you to go like tilt the picture back up, right? Because it's just bothering me. It's like messing with my mind. If it's dirty or something like that in my house, right? We gotta fix it. We gotta straighten it out. What I want you to understand is there's a process for you understanding your spiritual place and your emotional place with your life and your health, okay? And that process is started by awareness. It started by awareness. It started by asking those tough questions, asking those hard questions. So you have a piece of paper in front of you. There's a protocol called 49 breaths, okay? Now, a lot of us, we think, like I said, we think we can breathe it out, we think we can pray it out. Those are all aspects to emotional health, but those are conscious stresses. The subconscious stresses are the ones that we're not aware of. How many people actually get like time to themselves every day, like 5 or 10 minutes, where they just sit and think about what they're grateful for in their life? Okay, we got one person out of like, I don't know, like 60 or 70. The question is, how many people here right now, how many Marines and sailors actually take 5 or 10 minutes a day to sit down and just, with no electronics on, no TV on, right? No CNN, nothing like that, right? And all you're doing is thinking about what you're grateful for. Okay, we got like 3 people, right? It's still okay. I said it again, we increased by 2. So we got 5 out of like maybe 80 Marines and sailors here, right? One of the techniques I want to teach you is an attitude of gratitude technique, okay? So what you do is you wake up in the morning, you don't turn on the cell phone, you keep that off, you don't look at the email, you wake up like 10 minutes, not 10 minutes prior to the 10 minutes prior, just 10 minutes, okay? You wake up 10 minutes early, and you sit in a chair with all the electronics off. I'm already making people uncomfortable right now. They're like, oh my goodness, Facebook, I can't check it in the morning, right? You have all that stuff off, and you go to a place in your house or your barracks or outside your barracks where you feel like you're connected to God. Maybe it's the ocean, maybe it's off base, right? You have to wake up a little bit earlier, but I feel connected at the ocean, right? The ocean makes me feel at peace. You know, you don't want to go into the bathroom, right? Especially if you didn't like field day and your bathroom's nasty or something, or maybe you have like we used to stuff everything in the closet and then put the lock on when field day came, and then, you know, we were just that way, right? Some of you guys are like relating to that, you're like getting uncomfortable in your seat. You're like, my seat is here right now, you know what I mean? But go to a place that makes you feel abundant, where you can establish that attitude of gratitude, okay? So what I do is I go out on my balcony. It's a small balcony, conservative balcony, right? And I stare out at the lagoon and the ocean. And there I sit with my son. He's 11 months old, about to be a year on the 19th. And I just look into my 11-month-old eyes. I look in his eyes and I'm like, wow, look how far I've come. And then I think about 5 things I'm grateful for. Every day, are they going to come just like spouting off and it's easy? No, because when you're being attacked up here, it's hard to find those 5 things. So it might be, well, man, I got shoes on my feet. I got a paycheck coming in. I'm serving my country. I'm able to live in the United States. And I got a good night's sleep last night, right? I mean, you might be like pulling for straws because you've had a bad week, a bad month, maybe even a bad 10 years. But that's where it starts, guys. But you got to go to a place that opens your heart, okay? The other thing that I do when I wake up early in the morning is I put on some type of music that inspires me, okay? If you're like a death metal person, all right, that's not what I'm talking about, okay? What I'm talking about is something that puts you in what we call a parasympathetic state, a rest and digest state. Anybody heard that term before? So there's sympathetic stress, right? When we have the conversation about depression, anxiety, and PTSD, we're talking about sympathetic stress. Cortisol. Anybody heard that term? Dropping a bunch of stuff. Cortisol is when you're stressed. So you're in the woods, you're running from a bear, the bear's trying to kill you. Okay? Do you think combat creates that? Do you think life creates that? Oh, certainly, right? I mean, you get out on I-5, right? You see cars flipping over, right? It's like Fast and the Furious or something sometimes. The news, all the negativity out there, you know, everything's doom and gloom sometimes when you turn on the news, right? That's why I'm doing a 60-day fast where I'm not doing any electronics. I'm an Alabama fan, Roll Tide, and I'm not watching football until December 1st. It's going to kill me. That's never happened before, right? I watch all Saban's press conferences. I'm an addict, man. I'm sick. My brother's more sick than I am. But the point being, I'm doing that fast because I'm realizing that things have gotten out of balance in my life. My cortisol levels with helping people have gotten too out of whack. So cortisol is fight or flight. Happens on a daily basis, right? Especially if you're in the military. Because there are stresses you deal with every day. Deadlines or orders from someone. It's just, that's the way our environment is. It's an intense environment. So if you're not clearing that and clearing your head, and if you don't have your mind right, then you're the person that goes into fog of war, and you're not even in combat. You're in garrison right now, and you're having fog of war. Paralyzed will is what I call it, where you can't react because you're so stressed out. So what you need to do to start to reframe this is you have to get out of your head and into your heart, okay? That's how you start to shift things. You get out of your head and you get into your heart. So the way I got off the medications was not by sitting in front of somebody and them saying, you know, well, how'd you feel about this? How'd you feel about that? It was by having a plan of action and consistency. So I started waking up every morning, going to this safe place where I felt comfortable and where I felt with nature or with God. That might be a tree. Maybe there's a tree that you find that is so beautiful. Or maybe there's a spot in the ocean that you find is so beautiful. Or maybe you think this field is beautiful and looking at that palm tree. Whatever it is. Whatever helps you get quiet, right? And if you're the guy that crushes big rocks into little rocks, I was that guy. Okay, the guy that does chest every day and biceps, I was that dude. Okay, and then you wear the smallest t-shirt known to man, I was that guy. Okay, that was me. You wear the tank top, right? And it has extra holes in it because your guns are so big. I was that dude, okay? So if you're getting uncomfortable right now in your seat, it's because you're feeling convicted that what you're doing isn't working and that you need to change it. And the longer we're in denial about this, about that there's any spiritual or emotional component that affects us, the more we increase these cortisol levels. So the biggest thing I see with Marines and sailors is that they have digestive issues, they have liver issues, and they have adrenal problems. Your adrenal glands sit above your kidneys, they give you energy. So if you're getting tired in the afternoon between 1 and 5 o'clock, or believe it or not, you're only having a bowel movement once a day, that ain't normal, right? You probably eat chow like 3 to 5 times a day, right? So if you're only going to the bathroom once, your body's in what we call a sympathetic dominant state, fight or flight state. And you don't have to see somebody die to experience that, but that'll kill you just the same. Because what does it do to your body? Put you in a state of function or dysfunction? Absolutely, right? Throws off your adrenals, throws off the digestion, throws off the liver. So there's all this research. Anybody seen the research out there? This came out on YouTube, came out on Facebook probably about 8 years ago. And what it was is they showed under an electron microscope what happens when classical music is played versus rock, like Megadeth, like hardcore stuff, under a microscope, and they looked at water molecules. And under the classical music, the water molecules would separate and procreate. Under the death metal, kill a goat and worship Satan music, right? What happened? The water molecule just stays there. It's not moving anywhere. What does that tell you? That tells you that your state up here is everything. There's research that goes back to Dr. Hans Selye, S-E-Y-L-E, goes back to 1950 that talks about general adaptation syndrome, which is the connection between what you think up here and what happens physiologically in your body. So if we're not doing something for our state and to get us in that love state, from a productivity standpoint, right? Whether you're an officer, whether you're a corporal, a staff NCO, whatever your rank or role is, you're limiting the productivity of yourself and your staff and your subordinates and the people under you. And then when you go down, who gets let down when you go down? Your family, your Marines, the country, there's all sorts of people. Because what I want you to understand is what you have to start to identify as your why. I was speaking at Wells Fargo probably about a week ago, and I'm going to speak to all their managers in the area. And I was talking about emotional stress, and what I told them is I said, every day you do a transaction with somebody's money, you're blessing that person because you're allowing them to have the ability to go and buy something, to buy a house, to buy a backpack for their kids, to spend time with their kids, to go on a vacation. You're changing people's lives. And for a while there, some of the girls like rolled their eyes, or people rolled their eyes, and I said, no, really. My mom is a mortgage lender. She puts people in homes every single day. And what a blessing that she's able to do that. What a blessing. Because imagine how many memories that people have that are associated with a home. Think about the memories that you're creating right now and the legacy you're going to leave with everything that you're doing right now.